श्रीयुतापतकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवं च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातम् सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं स्वावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shashwin. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now we can hear you. Just there was initial hiccup, but we can hear you now.
Yes, please continue with reading the verses, no problem.
Okay. Shashwin, would you like to read the verse? We are on the first canto, 4th chapter, verse number 20.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. Yajo Tamatarvakya Edaschatva Vara Udrita Itihasa Puranam Cha Panchamo Veda Uchyate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Prabhuji, shall we read the other verses as well?
Yes, Prabhu, please read the other verses.
Okay. Anyone like to read the other verses? Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll
try.
Yes, Mataji, verse number 21.
Hare Krishna. Tatra Veda Thara Paila Sama Gojaminihi Kavihi Vaishampana Ayana Evaiko Nishnato Yajushamuta. Hare Krishna. Apologies for my appalling pronunciation.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I can read the verse number 22. Atharvangi rasam asid sumantur daruno muni itihasa purananam pita me roma harshana. Hare Krishna.
Hare
So verse
Krishna.
number 23.
I'll read 23 Haribol.
Yes, yes.
Ta ita rishayo vedam swam swam vyashan anipada sishyai prasishyai stachishyai vedaste sakino abhavan.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Anyone else to read 25?
24, not 25.
Or 24? Yes. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji, 24. Hare Krishna. Ta eva veda durmedhyo dharyanta purusher yatha evam chakara bhagavana vyasa kripana vatsala.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, we can hand over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Arya Govind Prabhu. So I will read the translations, and if there are any purports to the verses from 20 to 24, I hope all of you have the book. Before we start reading, I'll just say a short Mangalacharan. I know Shashwin has already said, but still. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vanchakalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Guru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you all for attending this session today. And thank you for having me in your wonderful association. We are reading the translation to text number 20, which states, the four divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately. But the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the fifth Veda. After the Vedas were divided into four divisions, this is text 21, Paila Rishi became the professor of Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of Sama Veda, and Vaisampayana alone became glorified by the Yajur Veda. Here's a small purport. The different Vedas were entrusted to different learned scholars for development in various ways. Text 23. The Sumanto Muni Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda, and my father, Roma Harshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. In the Shruti mantras also, it is stated that Angira Muni, who strictly followed the rigid principles of the Atharva Veda, was the leader of the followers of the Atharva Veda. Text 23. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas onto their many disciples, grand disciples, and thus the respective branches to being. Small purport. The original source of knowledge is the Vedas. There are no branches of knowledge, either mundane or transcendental, which do not belong to the original text of the Vedas. They have simply been developed into different branches. They were originally rendered by great, respectable, and learned professors. In other words, the Vedic knowledge, broken into different branches by different disciplic successions, has been distributed all over the world. No one, therefore, can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. And the last verse in today's session, text 24. Thus, the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, agitated the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. So an important point is coming up. We'll read the purport. The Veda is one, and the reasons for its divisions in many parts are explained herewith. The seed of all knowledge, or the Veda, is not a subject matter which can easily be understood by any ordinary man. There is a stricture that no one should try to learn the Vedas who is not a qualified Brahmana. This stricture has been wrongly interpreted in so many ways. A class of men who claim Brahminical qualifications simply by their birthright in the family of a Brahmana claim that the study of the Vedas is a monopoly of the Brahmana caste only. Another section of the people take this as an injustice to the members of the other castes who do not happen to take birth in a Brahmana family. But both of them are misguided. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Persons who are in modes of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. The ultimate goal of Vedic knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This personality is very rarely understood by those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance. In the Satya Yuga, everyone was situated in the mode of goodness. Gradually, the mode of goodness declined during the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, and the general mass of people became corrupt. In the present age, the mode of goodness is almost nil. And so far, the general mass of people, the kind-hearted, powerful sage Srila Vyasadeva, divided the Vedas in various ways so that they may be practically followed by less intelligent persons in the mode of passion and ignorance. It is explained in the next sloka as follows. Hare Krishna. So to put everything in context, we are hearing how, of course, the sages of Naimisaranya, they asked Sutta Goswami to tell them in that context, we are hearing about Vyasadeva, because Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Bhagavatam. So Sutta Goswami is starting where, the events that led to Vyasadeva compiling the Bhagavatam. Therefore, we are hearing how Vyasadeva, I think you covered it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. He was fully equipped in knowledge, and so he could see in the future. His other name of Vyasadeva is Trikalagya. There are many munis who are Trikalagya. Tri means three, Kala, time, Gya, no. Which three times? Past, present, and future. So the great sages, they are very adept. Their spiritual acumen is so sharp and their insight is so profound that they can see past, they can see what's happening presently, and they can see what's going to happen in the future. So because Vyasadeva possessed this transcendental vision, he could understand that this Kali Yuga is coming. And way back in chapter 1, the sages of Naimisaranya had already given the standard of the people of the age of Kali. They'll be short-lived, Prayanal Payusha Sabhya, Alpa Ayusha, short-lived, Kalav, quarrelsome, Asmin Yugejana, Manda, lazy, Sumanda Mataya, they are misguided, Manda Bhagya, they are unlucky, and finally Upadruta, they are always disturbed. So Vyasadeva also saw this, right? The sages of Naimisaranya, they had seen, but before then Vyasadeva had already seen it. And therefore, because he wanted to do welfare for the entire society, he started contemplating how to do this. Now, what I'm trying to help us see here is that there is a parallel that I'm drawing between the sages of Naimisaranya and Vyasadeva. The sages of Naimisaranya, they also came to Naimisaranya to perform sacrifice for the welfare of society. They also saw that this age is coming, the age of Kali, and this is not a good age. Therefore, we want to help people. That's what sages do. Their work is to help society. And so they also, out of concern, they came to Naimisaranya to perform sacrifices so that the general mass of people in the age of Kali can be benefited. Vyasadeva, in his contemplation, he saw the age coming, he saw the qualities that the people will have, and he thought, how can I help them? And therefore, he saw that these sacrifices that are mentioned in the Vedas will purify them. And therefore, he split that one Veda into 4. And those sacrifices that are prescribed in the Vedas were the very same sacrifices that the sages of Naimisaranya set to do, right? And therefore, we'll find in the later sections of Bhagavatam, they say our faces have become black by doing so much sacrifice, so much smoke was coming, but still we do not know what was the best for the people. So we see Vyasadeva also going through a similar sort of event. Vyasadeva saw and he thought, let me split the Vedas into 4, because one Veda and it had everything inside, and it was very, very complicated. I think we saw this in the beginning of the first chapter. I had given a whole chart of the summary of Vedic knowledge, right? How one Veda is split into 4, how the 4 Vedas, each Veda has a part, they have different parts in them. The Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, the Griya Sutras, the Samhitas, the Upanishads, the Upavedas, so many branches are there, right? So Vyasadeva, he split this one Veda into 4 to make it accessible for all of us, to make it simple, right? So that according to each and every caste and order of life, there is a section that they can go to and get what they're supposed to do. Because in the one Veda, it was all jumbled up, right? But when Vyasadeva split it up, like the Brahmana section, for example, is meant for the brahmacharis, right? The Aranyaka sections are meant for the Vanaprasthas. The Jnanakand sections are meant for the sannyasis, so and so forth. So in that way, he split it up that each Varna and each ashram, each occupation and each order of life can easily access what they're supposed to do and just stick to that. They don't need to read the whole thing. They don't need to go through a whole bunch of texts to find out what they're supposed to do. They just get it exactly, okay, this is your chapter, this is your section. Just read that, concern yourself with that, and that's it, right? So therefore, Vyasadeva did that. And these 4 Vedas, he gave, apart from the 4 Vedas, he gave the 5th Veda, which is known as, now if you go to strict theologists of the Vedic school of thought, they do not include the Puranas in their analysis, because they say that the Puranas are not the Veda, right? And therefore, many people don't even recognize the Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is Mahapuran. So therefore, you'll find there's some, especially from the Advaitic school of thought, they stick to the Vedas. If you're going to discuss with them anything, they want citations from the Veda. Because as we saw in that chart way back, Veda is Shruti and the Puranas is Smriti. Vedas is heard, it's direct sound from the Lord. The Smriti is recollections of what has happened. So therefore, you'll find, particularly the Advaitic school, they do not recognize Smriti. They say if anything is dealing with Smriti, don't tell us about it. That's not authentic. For them, what is authentic is only Shruti, only the Veda. But the thing about the Veda is that the language is very, very complex, and therefore it's very much open to misinterpretation. And we'll see that Vyasa, he wrote all this. He wrote the Vedas, he split them in different disciples of his to Paila, right? He gave Rig to Paila, and then he gave something to Jaimini, and so on and so forth. So he gave all the various sections of the Vedas to his different disciples. Yeah. And they taught it, each one of them opened a school. Right. So it's just like I mean, the devotees who joined us from UK, they are very familiar with this. Here in Kenya, we're not so much familiar with it. But when I went to the UK, actually went to the Cambridge town there, right? So there's University of Cambridge, but then there isn't just one building there that they say this is the university. Like you come here, University of Nairobi, and you have like one or two buildings, that's the whole university. But then they say University of Cambridge, and then they have College of Finance, for example, or School of Finance in the University of Cambridge. Then they have School of Arts in the University of Cambridge. Then they have School of Medicine. So they have various schools that are part of the university, but the deans are separate, the text is separate, the learning is separate. In the same way, when Vyasadeva gave the Vedas to his disciples, they opened schools. And if you wanted to learn Rig Veda, you had to go to Paila Rishi's school. If you wanted to learn Atharva Veda, you had to go to Angira Muni's school, right? So just like if you want to learn medicine, you go to the School of Medicine. You want to learn accounting, you go to the School of Finance, like that. So each Veda had a teacher, a school, and that disciple of Vyasadeva then propagated it to his disciples, and in that way entire school was formed in that particular Veda. Sutta is, he is explaining this currently, right? That Vaisampayana got Yajur, right? Jaimini got Sama, and then Atharva was given to Angira. And he's saying, my father, Roma Harshana, was given the Puranas. Now, Roma Harshana, for those of us who have read the Krishna book, you will know what happened to him, right? His full name was Roma Harshana Sutta. We're hearing Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami. So those who were given the Puranas, they were known as Sutta. And Sutta Goswami's father was Roma Harshana Sutta. Initially, he was seated on the Vyasasana and he was giving the discourse on the Puranas. There were sages there who had come to hear from him. But Lord Balaram was on pilgrimage during that time, right? This was during the time of the Kurukshetra war. Lord Balaram never wanted any part of that, so he went on pilgrimage. And as he was going on pilgrimage, he came to Naimisaranya, the very same place the sages are sitting, right? And he found Roma Harshana Sutta on the Vyasasana. So as soon as Lord Balaram came into that assembly, all the sages, they stood up to pay their respects. But Roma Harshana was thinking, I'm on the Vyasasana, so I don't need to stand up. And Lord Balaram noted that and he said, oh, you don't need to stand up? So he took a blade of grass and beheaded Roma Harshana Sutta right there on the Vyasasana. And all the sages, they were there, they were like, wait, Lord Balaram, what did you do? We were here hearing Krishna Katha from him now. You know, you've killed our speaker. What are we supposed to do? So Lord Balaram then saw Sutta Goswami and he said, okay, you sit on the asana, you give the Krishna Katha. So that's a little bit of tidbit about Roma Harshana Sutta. He was actually killed by Lord Balaram because of not standing up to receive Lord Balaram. So in this way, the various disciples that he had, as I explained, into full-fledged schools of each of those branches, right? The main point here being that Veda means knowledge. There is no knowledge that exists beyond the Veda. So even though we see, like they may say astronomy, it's there in the Veda. Astrology, it's there in the Veda. Gemology is there in the Veda. Everything is there. Even something like zoology is there. Botany, biology, physics, chemistry, everything is included in the Vedas. There is nothing separate from the Vedas. Each of these schools, they broke down everything, and they had from the Vedas, the Upavedas, etc., etc. All the knowledge that we have right now is included in the Vedas. But having said that, we know that as Kali Yuga progressed, this we are hearing of events that happened 5,000 years ago, right? Vyasadeva is seeing this in the beginning of Kali Yuga, which was 5,000 years ago. In these 5,000 years, 95% of the Vedas are lost. They can't be recovered. No one knows what happened to them, right? The various schools that were teaching the Vedas, they got dismantled or lost also, or they couldn't find enough disciples to teach further, as the time went on. So in these 5,000 years, 95% of the Vedic knowledge is lost. What we have access to is only 5% at the most. Therefore, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, we're hearing that Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the entire Vedic knowledge. And so therefore, if we just study the Bhagavatam, we will get all the knowledge that is contained in the Vedas. We don't need to worry ourselves, oh, 95% have been lost. What are we going to do now? No, everything is in the Bhagavatam, right? And because Vyasadeva had this compassion, just like the sages of Naimisaranya had the compassion. This is what sages do. They have compassion. And so therefore he thought, this Kali Yuga people are not so clever. They don't have intelligence. They're lazy. They'll be misguided. So let me simplify things for them, right? You have a big book that has many topics that it's discussing. The teacher usually just simplifies it, breaks it down into chapters, breaks the chapters down into summaries, and then tries and disseminate the knowledge that is contained in the book. Similarly, Vyasadeva did the same thing, that he knew people will not be intelligent, right? So therefore, because they're not intelligent, one, they won't even know the language. They'll not know the technicalities of the grammar in that language. So therefore, let me make it simple for them. This was Vyasadeva's contribution to the entire society. He made it in such a way that it can be accessed by ordinary man. But even that is very, very difficult, right? We see something like Bhagavad Gita is also very difficult for the ordinary man. I mean, if there were no purpose of Srila Prabhupada, what are we going to understand? Not much. Similarly, Bhagavatam, if Srila Prabhupada didn't give us the commentaries and distilled into his purports, made it simple, accessible in English language, how many of us would be reading the Bhagavatam? How many of us would even know about the Bhagavatam, reading it? Very, very few. So we see Srila Prabhupada also, out of compassion, he got an instruction from his spiritual master that you preach in English out of compassion. He took all these various commentaries that are in Sanskrit of the great commentators on the Bhagavatam, and he distilled the essence and captured it in the purport. And therefore we see that Srila Prabhupada's purports can be accessed by all of us, can be understood by all of us if we try really, really hard. Of course, because it's a spiritual subject, it's a dynamic subject, it's not like reading an English book. So the more we are spiritually attuned, then we can understand the purports to a greater extent. But nonetheless, even if we're not spiritually attuned, if we simply read Srila Prabhupada's purport, we can get what the shloka is saying, something we can get, right? So that Srila Prabhupada has made that accessible to everyone. So Vyasadeva had the same thought that let me help everyone, let me make it much more easier. And people misused it. They said the Brahmanas before were the only ones dealing with Vedic knowledge. They were the teachers of society. So therefore, if anyone wanted to learn anything, they would go to the Brahmanas. We see during the Pandavas' time, who did they go to learn about military art? Can anyone tell us? In between, I have to ask some questions just to make sure I'm not talking on my own.
Drona.
Dronacharya.
Yes, very good. Dronacharya. Now, Dronacharya was actually a Brahmana. He wasn't a Kshatriya. He wasn't like a great warrior. He was a Brahmana. He was simple, living in a hut. He had one son, Ashwatthama. He was a Brahmana, but he was expert in Dhanur Veda, right? The military science of, or rather military science. So he was very expert in that, but he was a Brahmana, right? Similarly, when people would get sick, they would go to Brahmanas. The Brahmanas would be doctors because they would know Ayurveda. See? So each Brahmana, each family of the Brahmanas, they would have various specialities that they are very much expert in, right? So they would be an Brahmanas simply dealing with Ayurveda, there would be Brahmanas dealing with military science, there would be Brahmanas dealing with political science, like Chanakya Pandit is a Brahmana, but he was very expert in political science. See? So, and then there would be Brahmanas who are dealing with astrology, Brahmanas dealing with astronomy, Brahmanas dealing with, study of the land and various other places, right? So people would go to the Brahmanas to learn. They were the teachers of society. But as Kali Yuga progressed, then the Brahmanas, they thought that, no, this knowledge only belongs to us. And the other various sections of society were feeling, why are we not able to access this knowledge? And therefore the whole birth system came in that, I'm a Brahmana by birth, so that means, or rather because I'm born in a Brahmana family, therefore I'm a Brahmana, but that's not true, right? So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here that if we want to understand Vedic knowledge, then we have to be Brahmanically qualified. That's not the same as meaning as taking birth in a Brahmana family. No, we have to be a qualified Brahmana, guna and karma. The qualifications are by the qualities and the work. So for example, someone has gone to law school. They may have the knowledge, but if they're not practicing as a lawyer, you can't really call them a lawyer. Just because someone has gone to law school doesn't mean he's become a lawyer. Similarly, someone may be practicing law, but if he doesn't have law school certification, then you can't really call him a lawyer. You call him a quack, right? Similarly with a doctor. Someone may prescribe you medicine, but if they're not certified by the medical board, then they're a quack, because how do you know that what they're prescribing is really the real stuff, right? Or if someone has gone to medical school but is not practicing, then you can't really call them a doctor. Similarly with Brahmanas, not only do you have to possess Brahminical qualities, but you also have to do Brahmanas work, guna and karma. So what are the Brahminical qualities? Sama, dama, tapa, socham, shantir, arjavam, evacha, jnana vijnanam astikyam, brahma karma, subhavajam. What are the Brahminical qualities? Sama, control over the mind. Dama, control over the senses. Tapa, they perform austerities. You don't see Brahmanas living a bourgeois life. No, they are very austere. They live in small huts. Just like I mentioned, Chanakya Pandit is mentioned. Chanakya Pandit was so expert. So one time, one person went to see him in his hut, and it was evening time. So when he approached Chanakya Pandit. He said, I want to see you. So Chanakya Pandit said, do you want to see me on government business or you want to see me on personal business? He said, I want to see you on personal business. So Chanakya Pandit told him, okay, wait. So he was writing something, some letter, something. He finished that. And then, to the surprise of the person who was waiting, he blew off his candle. The person was wondering, why did he do that? Does he not want to see me or what's happening here? Right? He blew off that candle. Then he lit another candle. So this person was confused. He's like, what's happening here? So he asked him, why did you, that was a perfectly good candle that was going on. Why did you turn that one off and turn this one on? He said, no, this candle that I turned off is for government business. I only use it for government business. When someone comes to see personally, I have my personal candle that I use. So therefore, he was very expert and he was very careful and not to misuse government facilities for his own purpose. So therefore, they live an austere life. He was minister, Chanakya Pandit, right? But he was living in a hut. Similarly, the Brahmanas, the great saints and sages and the Brahmanas that would advise great kings, they wouldn't be living in the palace with the king. You don't hear anywhere that, oh, the Brahmana's room was there in the king's palace. No, they had their huts, simple huts. So tapa, austere. Socham, they clean. Clean means not just externally in the body, but in their mind, in their words, they are very, very clean. They clean inside and outside. So Socham, Shanti, they're tolerant. Arjavam, they're simple. Yeah, they perform austerities and they live simply. Yeah, we hear Yudhishthir Maharaj after the battle of Kurukshetra, he was feeling so bad, that so many people died simply because I wanted to sit on the throne. So he said, I don't want this throne. I don't want this money. I don't want this royal lifestyle. And he took everything. He went to Vyasadeva and he said, I'm giving you all this in donation. Because you're supposed to give charity to the Brahmanas. So he said, you're a Brahmana. I am a king. Whatever I have, I'm giving in charity to you. So Vyasadeva said, very nice. Very good. I accept your charity. But what will I do with all this? So I'm giving it back to you. So Vyasadeva gave everything back to Yudhishthir Maharaj. And then Yudhishthir Maharaj said, okay, now this is not mine that is given back to me. This is now Vyasadev's prasad that I'm getting. I'm getting his blessings. So then he accepted it. So the Brahmanas, we hear, they would get huge amounts of charity, but they would never keep it. They would give it away. So they were simple in that way. Arjavam. Then they had knowledge, jnana. They were studying the Vedas, so they had knowledge. And they had faith. So Kshantirarjamam evacha jnana vijnana, they had wisdom, knowledge, wisdom, and astikyam, they had faith. They were theists. They were not atheists, right? And what was their work? These were their qualities. So if someone has all these qualities, then they can be called a Brahmana, provided that they're doing the work of a Brahmana. So what was the work? The work was yajan, to perform sacrifices and to make others perform sacrifices, or to teach others how to perform sacrifices or worship, for example, yajan. Then dana pratigraha, to accept charity and to give charity. So they would not charge fees. It's not like you go to a doctor and the doctor says, first pay up, then I'll see you. No, the Brahmanas, they would treat everyone for free. And then whatever the person feels like giving, they would accept as dakshina. It was not preset from before that, I'm going to teach you this, so you need to pay me this. Pay the school fees first, then you'll get admission. No, they would teach. Dana pratigraha. They would give in charity this knowledge, and then whatever they're getting in return, they would accept. And pathan, they would learn themselves the Vedas and they would teach the Vedas. So these 6 activities is what was known as the work of the Brahmanas. Worshipping themselves, teaching others to worship, learning themselves, teaching others what they've learned, and accepting charity themselves and giving charity also. So in this way, if all these are in place, one has the qualities and one is doing the work, we can say someone has the qualities, but then they're working for someone, or they're owning a lot of property, or they're doing some business, then that's not really a Brahmana, right? Brahmana has to match the quality and the work. Both have to match. You can't say, no, the quality is matching, but the work is not matching, then that's not a Brahmana. Or the work is matching, but the qualities are not matching, that's not a Brahmana. So if these two are matching, then that is a Brahmana. And such people can then understand what is given in the Vedas by Vyasadeva, right? Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is saying that it is not about caste, it is about quality and work. And especially it is about the mode of the nature, material nature, three modes of material nature. So the Vedas were accessible to those in the mode of goodness. If someone has these qualities of a Brahmana, then automatically they are in the mode of goodness. Because you can't have these qualities if you're not in goodness. How can you control your mind and senses if you're not in goodness? How can you be austere if you're not in goodness? Or how can you be simple if you're not in goodness? Right? So therefore, we find that spiritual life means cultivating goodness. What does goodness mean? There are three modes of material nature. You've covered this in the Bhagavad Gita. So goodness means there are many symptoms given. What does goodness mean? It means it's illuminating. All the senses know what they're supposed to do. They do it the correct way. The knowledge also is proper in terms of discrimination, that this is right, this is wrong, is clear. There's no confusion, what is right, what is wrong, right? The determination is well placed. The work is well placed. The happiness is like that it may be difficult in the beginning, but gives pleasure in the end. Poison in the beginning, nectar in the end. So in this way, many symptoms and characteristics are given of goodness in the Bhagavad Gita. And one who cultivates this mode of goodness, then such a person can actually understand the knowledge that is contained in the Vedas, right? And those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, well, bad luck, right? We find Srila Prabhupada, he is writing in his poem while he was landing in America on the ship. He is writing that these American skylines and the cities, they're completely under passion and ignorance. How am I supposed to teach them anything about Krishna? So he's writing to Krishna, he's saying, Krishna, you've brought me here, now you have to preach and you have to show me how I can teach these who are completely in the mode of passion and ignorance to come to the mode of goodness, right? Because the goal of every knowledge contained in the Veda is Krishna. Vedesta sarve ahameva vedyo, right? And we see that goodness was prevalent in the Satya Yuga. Religion was also maintained very nicely. The four pillars of religious life was standing. In Treta Yuga, it declined by 25%, right? It's mentioned how Lord Ram also saw people were becoming greedy. They were having disagreements. In Dwapar Yuga, it cut another 25%. So total loss was 50%. Half the populace was having non-Brahminical qualities, right? And in Kali Yuga, another 25% has gone. So basically, we are standing on one leg, one pillar of religious life, and even that is shaking. So in Kali Yuga, basically, all the pillars of religious life are not there. Goodness comes very difficult, to find people in the mode of goodness. Those you find are in the mode of goodness are only devotees or very high priests of other movements and things, but generally very difficult. There was a survey done, and let's see if you can also participate in this survey, that what if when people say they want to relax, what does it mean? If people want a break or they want relaxing, what does it mean? Anyone?
A mode of Prabhu, mode of ignorance.
Yes, but what activity would you think they'd do? Like if someone was to say you have some free time, and in this free time you can relax, what do you think people will do? Sleep. Very good, Prahlad. Sleep. What else? Is that it?
Intoxication.
Intoxication. Very good, Peter. Yes. Two more. Is that it?
Indulge,
Sleep and intoxication.
indulge in illicit sex.
Okay, maybe. Not so much, but maybe. Yeah. What else? Come on, if you had free time, what would you do?
Intoxication.
Watching movies or watching TV.
Yes, okay, very good, Panchali. Very good. And
Chatting with friends.
okay, chatting with friends. Yeah, so when they did a survey that when people have free time, what is the thing that they do the most? Number one was sleep. If you have free time, just want to sleep. Number two was to go on vacation. So go and travel somewhere, go and see a new place, go to visit a new place. Like vacation also includes like mall visits and things like that. Number three was drinking. If you have free time, let's head to the pub, let's head to the bar, and we just drink ourselves silly. And number four was we watch a movie, or we watch TV, right? So these were the top four that majority of the people if they say they have free time, this is the top four activities. This was an actual survey done. So we see if you analyze those four activities, they're all in the mode of passion and ignorance. Sleep, ignorance. Vacation, passion. Intoxication, ignorance. And watching a movie, watching a TV, also ignorance, right? So basically, this is what people's lives are. This is what that they concern themselves with. Mode of passion and ignorance, and therefore very, very difficult to come to goodness. You tell someone wake up early, that means you are in the mode of goodness. They'll say, who wants to do that? We have to struggle even to get to work. Why would we want to wake up early? And even that on weekends and holidays, oh, forget it. We want to sleep. We have free time, we want to sleep. Mode of ignorance. So in this mode of ignorance, then how can you expect that anyone can understand what is contained in the Vedas? It's impossible, right? Therefore, we find that the first step in any religious movement or any spiritual movement is to bring people to a level of goodness. Yeah. In Christianity, they have the 10 Commandments. Why are the 10 Commandments there? So that one can rise from the modes of ignorance and passion and come to the mode of goodness, at least the mode of goodness. Similarly, Islam has its rules and regulations. Hinduism isn't a thing, but anyway, because people use it. Every religious outfit or every spiritual outfit, they have some sort of mind control and sense control. Sama and Dhamma has to be there. Otherwise, you can't understand. These are mystical sciences. The knowledge here is dynamic. It only enters if there is goodness. It doesn't enter if there is no goodness. We can read it 1,000 times. You give like an example. Buffalo, completely in the mode of ignorance. You take the Bhagavatam to the buffalo, even if you go blue in the face reading the Bhagavatam, the buffalo is not going to understand, right? Similarly with the Bhagavad Gita, similarly with any scripture. So in order for people to understand even a little bit, they must have goodness, right? In goodness, then we can understand. In modes of passion and ignorance, just forget it, right? Therefore, Vyasadeva, as we will read in the next shloka, Vyasadeva, he didn't deal so much with the Vedas for those in the mode of passion and ignorance. He actually wrote Mahabharata and the Puranas for those in the modes of passion and ignorance. that they get to hear what they want to hear, but at the same time, underneath all that hidden is Vedic knowledge, right? So Vyasadeva, that's how he approached it. Just like a kid, doesn't want to eat medicine, it's bitter, he cries, throws a tantrum, he says, I don't want to eat this. So what does the mother do? Mother takes a rasgulla, puts the pill in between the rasgulla, and then gives the kid, here, eat that. So the kid is happy, he's thinking, oh, I'm eating sweet. But inside the sweet, underneath the layer of the sweet is the medicine. So that goes in and that helps him. So the same way Vyasadeva, he wrote the Mahabharata because Mahabharata has intrigue, it has politics, it has action, it has romance, it has everything. And this is what people want to hear. So when they hear about that, but underneath that, in between the conversations, Vyasadeva has injected Vedic knowledge. So in this way, he decided, let me help those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance by dividing these Vedas, further dividing them into Puranas, dividing that knowledge, making it accessible for those in the mode of passion and ignorance, because that is the maximum of the population in the age of Kali. And in this way, we'll read how even after doing all this, something happens and someone's not happy. And then there's an extended conversation on why that person is not happy. So I'm not going to give you spoilers. That is be coming up. And I think I will now leave some time for some questions or comments if anyone has.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yeah, Panchali Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the wonderful class as always. So my question is actually not directly related, but it's on the Brahmanical qualities that you mentioned. So if you think about the pure souls connecting with God, and if you think about other religions, the exalted priests in the other religions, but who have meat, or they perform certain things which are not prescribed or not thought to be proper in the Vedic culture. So does that mean that they are not directly connecting with their gods, and there isn't a path to salvation for them? So how does it work in that case? Because does that mean that the pure Brahmins are only those who follow the Vedic scripture, but that is reduced now? The entire world has so many other religions.
Yes, thank you for your question. We see actually that we know the absolute truth is only one. Whether someone calls him Allah, whether someone calls him Jehovah, whether someone calls him Krishna, right? They're all looking for the same absolute truth. It's just one personality, right? The method may be different. Now, if we look at true Christianity, and I say true Christianity because what is out there is all jumbled up. If you look at true Christianity, like for example, here in Nairobi, we have, or rather in East Africa, we have a church called the Seventh-day Adventists, SDA. They don't eat meat. If you look at the life of Jesus Christ, he never ate meat. There is no one place that is written that Jesus specifically ate meat. Yes, there is a place where he distributed fish, but distributing fish and eating meat is different, right? There is no specific mention. So if you look at the 10 Commandments also, it's all about mind control, sense control, So therefore we see, if you strip out all those layers and you look at the core of any religious outfit, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Zoroastrianism or whatever, if you look at the core is Vedic. We just read from the purport, there is no information that is outside of the Vedas. So if the core is Vedic and someone is following the core 100%, then definitely they're following the Vedic principles. So if they're doing that properly, then you can call them Brahmanas, yes.
Okay.
And if they're doing it properly, then they get the same result. They go to the same goal. They'll eventually come to the path of bhakti, and from bhakti, then they get access to the personal and full feature of the absolute truth. Otherwise, in their respective religions, they may have some partial feature that they're understanding of the absolute truth. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for a nice class you are giving. Prabhuji, in the text number 25, like Shree, Shudra, Brahma, Dija Bandhuna. So it is mentioned the ladies are not qualified to understanding the Vedas, but we learn from our childhood. Lopamudra, Ghosha, Vishwavara, they are the very learned scholar, and they are written the Vedic scriptures. So how it is the controversy? They are wrote the Vedic scriptures, but now it is so that best they wrote in the Mahabharata.
Yes. Okay. So like verse 25, I think the speaker tomorrow will cover that. And I don't really want to spoil verse 25 for this tomorrow's speaker. But anyway, yes, it's known that Vyasadeva is the one who wrote the Mahabharata. Yeah, he was speaking it and Ganapati was writing it. Right. So that's the version that everyone knows. But over time, what happened is people started inserting other stories and other things in the Mahabharata. Right. So eventually it was like, what is the real Mahabharata? Because North India, they have one version of the Mahabharata. South India, they have one version of the Mahabharata. East and West India, they have their own versions of Mahabharata. And then you get the British coming in and they put something in also their own version of Mahabharata. So it's like, what is the real Mahabharata? That no one can say, because what Vyasadeva had written, it has been edited, it has been modified. It's the same with the Bible, what happened. But therefore, we concentrate more on the Gita, because Gita, 700 verses, Krishna has spoken. It's universal everywhere. Everyone has 700 verse Gita. No one has like a Gita that is 750 verses or a Gita that's only 300 verses. It's standard 700 verses. So we stick to that. And we stick to the Bhagavatam because that's standard 18,000 verses. Wherever you go, it's 18,000 verses. Right? The interpretation may be a bit different here and there from non-Vaishnava schools and Vaishnava schools. But in terms of the verses, they're exactly the same. So therefore, we stick to that because Mahabharata, over time, it just got messed up, right? Similarly, with Ramayana, we see that there are many versions of Ramayana, but actually Valmiki Ramayana is the only Ramayana. There is no other Ramayana. The other people may call it Ramayana, but only Valmiki Ramayana is authentic. See? So there is that, according to various areas in India, there are people who trying to teach something to the society, they included it because everyone knows if someone says, oh, it's in the Mahabharata, then more authority, correct? So they wanted to put something, they put it in the Mahabharata and they made up some fictional story that, oh, the Pandavas went like this. And so like you'll see some serials also on Indian television, they remove some stuff which is just from their head. There's no really like Draupadi said that or the Pandavas did that, but they'll just put something there because they want to give a message to the society of what they think the society should do. But they're using Mahabharata as a crutch. Oh, if we say it's in the Mahabharata, everyone will believe. If I say it's from my head, people will throw stones. So, see, and then when you actually go and ask them, okay, where is it in the Mahabharata? They say, oh, I'll find it, but I'll give you. It'll never come. Yeah. So that's why we hear these many authors and many people and regarding how women, Shudras, Vaishyas, Dvija that I'll leave to the speaker for tomorrow to explain why that is in that way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Prabhuji. Okay, it's okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. We have exhausted our time. Are there any more questions or comments? I would like to request His Grace Parth Prem Prabhu to close the session.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhuji, His Grace Sri Gauranga Prabhu. We know very well Sri Gauranga Prabhu, so no need to just show the lamp to the sun. So, so I request all the devotee, instead of Sri Gauranga Prabhuji busy too, and every day he have classes and seminars and everything, but still he is willing to give the class and teaching the Bhagavatam. So we are so grateful, Prabhu, to you. And also, Sam, we also thanks to all the devotees who are assembling here. I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for a glorification of His Grace Sri Gauranga Prabhuji. Please join. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Hare
Hare,
Ram,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Vancha kalpa tarubhesha kripa sindhubhesha
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo
Namo Namo.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
His Grace Sri Gauranga Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Eldoret Yatra ki jai.
Jai.
Thank
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Shashin, you can end the session. Yes, Kumar Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Okay, ending the meeting, bro.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna.